Welcome back to the series I'm going to start calling the Rfffl Rundown. Week 3 is behind us, and we've got the same top 4 teams that we had last week. So let's take a look at the games that got us to where we are. First off, Rachel got into the win column this week with an impressive come from behind win over Jared, proving that last year's curse hasn't quite left Jared's squad. Jared had a great week from players like Alexander Madison and DJ Moore, but underwhelming weeks from players like Robert Tunyon and Tyreek Hill left the door open for Ezekiel Elliott to close a 21-point gap on Monday night and push Rachel to a 134 to 108 win. That'll keep Jared from staying in the top 6 this week. Rachel takes on a dangerous lineup this week in Anna, who's still hungry for her first win. Number 2 Kyle took out number 4 Eric with a K last week, and he did it without a flex, partially as a flex. At least part of the result can be attributed to Christian McCaffrey's hamstring injury early in the Panthers game on Thursday, leaving him with only 6 points on the week. That's not all, though, as Allen Robinson and TJ Hawkinson also failed to deliver, both finishing under 5 points. Kyle got a great week from DeAndre Swift and Justin Jefferson, leading him to a 123 to 109 point win over Eric with a K. Eric will look to bounce back this week as he takes on top-ranked Dave with Panthers' second-string running back Chuba Hubbard. The league leader keeps rolling with a big win over Natalie in Week 3. Dave got a great week from top-ranked receiver Cooper Kupp, as well as Kareem Hunt, who took the lion's share of points away from Natalie's Nick Chubb. Natalie got plenty of points from Emmanuel Sanders' 2-touchdown game, but the rest of her team couldn't keep up with that pace, leaving her with only 105 points, which couldn't touch Dave's 138. Natalie will have to bounce back to keep her top 4 spot as she lines up against Jared this week. Caroline came up short against Dan, giving him his first win of the season. Sir Nitzelot posted the lowest score of the week, including disappointing performances from Motor Singletary and Week 3 pickup Rondale Moore. Dan finally got his breakout week from Josh Allen, who threw for 4 touchdowns and ran for a 5th. Unfortunately, none of those passing touchdowns were thrown to Stephon Diggs or Devin Singletary, leaving Caroline with only 86 points against Dan's 121. Dan will look to build on his first win this week, but he'll have to figure out Kyle, who swept him in the season series last year. Kathy is off to her second 2-1 start in 3 years with a huge win over Eric this week. Kathy was the highest scoring team this week with a solid performance across the board. Especially strong were Mike Williams and Cole Beasley, who teamed up for 51 points. Eric was once again let down by his skill players as D-Hop, Hollywood Brown, and Tyson Williams posted 16 points combined. Kathy took this one 144 to 96, and she'll take a 2-game win streak into her matchup with Caroline this week. Anna's opening skid continues as she falls to Catherine in Week 3. This game's 13-point margin was the second smallest in the league, and it played even further into a trend of Anna scoring decently but still being outscored. She still ranks 6th overall in scoring, but she's also ranked 2nd in points against. Catherine's revamp was helped by big weeks from the Broncos' defense and kicker Brandon McManus, and it was enough to get her back on track just in time to face Susan this week. Kang brought Susan her second straight loss on the back of huge weeks from Najee Harris and Tom Brady, each breaking off over 28 points. Susan had an underwhelming week on the whole, with only Justin Tucker and Ryan Tannehill reaching their projections. The final of this one, 130 to 94, as Kang gets back into the win column and looks to make it 2 in a row against Eric this week. Now it's time to take a look at how the standings shake out after Week 3. Dave is still holding on to the top spot, breaking his record for most weeks at number 1 in a whole season. The rest of the top 4 stays the same, with Kyle in second and Natalie and Eric with a K separated by only 1.14 points. Kang and Kathy round out the top 6. We've got 7 teams at 1 win and 2 losses this week, as Jared, Dan, Eric, and Susan all have more points than the number 6 spot. Catherine, Caroline, and Rachel fill out the other 3 teams at 1 and 2, and Anna sits alone at the bottom, despite still outscoring over half of the league, including 2 of the teams in the top 6. Plenty of action on the waiver wire this week, starting with Kyle on Friday night, when the news broke that receiver Josh Norman would be reinstated into the league. Kyle dropped at the time 15th ranked receiver Christian Kirk to pick Norman up, then dropped Gordon to pick up Quintez Cephas for a little bit, before dropping Cephas to take back Norman. Around this time, Kang dropped Darnell Mooney and Tevin Coleman, and then picked up Christian Kirk before Kyle could take him back. Wednesday's waiver wires were hectic as Rachel dropped the Titans defense to pick up the Falcons. Catherine dropped Myles Gaskin for Hunter Renfrow. Jared dropped the Colts defense to pick up the Saints. Kang picked Darnell Mooney back up. Eric with a K dropped Nelson Aguilar and Russell Gage for the Washington defense and Chuba Hubbard. A few hours after waivers were processed, Dan dropped Juwan Johnson for Dalton Schultz. Catherine dropped the Broncos to pick up the Bengals. And there was one more transaction. Give me just 1 second. Kyle added Peyton Barber and dropped Zach Pascal. Let's take a look at the games that we're headed into this week, starting with two players on Thursday night. Anna and Rachel square off in a matchup that'll likely start with James Robinson and Marvin Jones taking the field for 9-1-1. Rachel broke 100 points for the first time this week, and this upcoming week we'll see whether the fluke was her low scores or her high score. Anna posted her lowest score yet at 115 last week with letdowns from Tyler Lockett and Noah Fant. This one comes down to Justin Herbert's Monday night performance, but Anna is once again projected to win by a score of 118 to 115. Eric and Kang face off this week. Kang is fresh off his second win of the year, and the newly acquired Christian Kirk could spark him to a third. Eric, on the other hand, took his second loss of the year with bad weeks from his receivers, but he'll hope it was a fluke as he needs everything he can get to fight back to an even record. It'll be Kang's Austin Eckler taking on Eric's Jared Cook and Daniel Carlson on Monday night, and NFL.com says it goes to Kang, 115 to 118. David and Eric with a K square off for their first of two games this year. Dave took the win last year in Week 4 by a score of 141 to 122, and he'll look to repeat that performance this year to hold on to the top spot. With Darrell Henderson looking likely to play for Dave and CMC still benched this week for Eric with a K, this one is projected to go Dave's way by a score of 119 to 116. In their fourth meeting, Dan aims to get a win on the board against Kyle, who took all three of their meetings from him last year, including their Week 1 playoff matchup, which Kyle won 135 to 115. Dan is still riding the momentum of his first win, but Kyle will get the last say in this one with Darren Waller and Derek Carr playing their second Monday Night Football game of the season against the Chargers. NFL.com says they'll be the ones to push Kyle to his fourth win of the season and his fourth win over Dan by a score of 121 to 116. Two teams who took rough losses last week will look to bounce back as Natalie takes on Jared. Natalie leads the all-time record 2-1. She could have Josh Jacobs back from his ankle injury just in time to replace Trey Sermon, who will likely take a backseat to a healthy Elijah Mitchell. Jared will also have his lead back, Dalvin Cook, back from an ankle injury, though the likelihood of that is less important since Jared handcuffed Alexander Madison. Jared has some of the best projections of the league this week, and NFL.com sees him taking this one 128 to 110. Kathy moves on to her third of three matchups against her offspring as she lines up against 1-2 Caroline. After a tough Week 1 loss to Natalie, Kathy has taken two straight wins, including a huge week against her son Eric last week, where she broke off 144 points. Caroline is the child Kathy has had the best success against, as she leads the all-time series 6-2. Caroline was able to steal a win off of Rachel in Week 2, but she's been quiet in her other 2 weeks, so she'll need a big week from her Bills players to pull off the upset. The projection for this one is up in the air, with NFL.com giving it to Caroline by a score of 115 to 113. In this week's Game of the Week, two teams with identical records find themselves on opposite trajectories. Susan won her first game against Eric before taking a two-game skid against Eric with a K and Kang. Catherine, on the other hand, lost her first 2 games to Kyle and Natalie, but she pulled out a win last week against Anna. These two were ranked 10 and 11 in the league, and they're only separated by 11.02 points. Catherine will kick it off with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase taking the field on Thursday, and Monday night we'll see Keenan Allen from Catherine and maybe Kenyon Drake from Susan, although Mark Ingram could take the RB2 spot from him. All in all, the trends are projected to continue as Catherine takes this one 124 to 118. That's all we've got before the games start, and as always, I'll see you next week on Thursday.